friends. Welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws Podcast with East Forest. I'm Mr. Forrest. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. I'm bringing you what I like to call the best of 2022, but, it's not what I would deem to be the best, another or worst. It's just highlights from the year, sort of dropping the needle on some episodes that I'm looking back and remembering. And when I do get to look back, there are so many amazing guests. Everyone who's come on the show, I'm so grateful for that. So thank you to all of our guests for their time and sharing their gifts with us so generously and freely. So you're going to hear some samples from some really wonderful moments and some really cool diversity. It was fun for me to go back and listen. And if you want to hear any of these episodes in full, if you go down to the show notes, I did put the episode number so it's easier to find, as well as the Apple Podcast link to that. So you're going to hear Muji, which is episode 222, Matthew Fox, 206, Duncan Trussell, 219. I got a Radha Krishna Roundtable one, a moment that I liked at episode 218. Charles Eisenstein, 203. Max Cooper, the wonderful musician. Bernardo Kastrup, modern philosopher. Max is 202. Bernardo's 226. Constance Lynn, 210. And then I end it with the Love It meditation, 220. And for those of you who don't know, there are other guided meditations in this podcast that are, of course, free to listen to. I've got some meditation albums that are like mastered and mixed and all that sort of jazz in the best way I can, called Still and Meditation for Chaotic Times, on streaming platforms like Apple and Spotify, Amazon, etc. But there's probably about another dozen, I haven't counted, 10 to 15 meditations just on this podcast. If you go back in time and kind of look for the titles that say guided meditation, you'll see that. And the Love It meditation is one of those. So I think you're going to love this episode. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for listening, not just this year, but honestly for the past 15 years. I've been doing this project for that long. For a long time, it was just like on MySpace, and it was, I even uploaded like my first record into the Library of Commerce in Creative Commons. It was all just kind of out there for free. And I still try to keep a core of that being in the spirit of the gift with the project and finding ways to be of service. And of course, always trying to find ways to balance that with living inside capitalism and trying to do this as a form of making a living so that I can give all of my time to it, which I do, and then some, which maybe that's the problem, is I give so much time. But, it really wouldn't make any sense if y'all weren't listening and creating that kind of support for me to even create this stuff at all. I mean, it really is that simple. So thank you so much for finding and meaning and giving your time to this podcast, to the music especially, and for those of you who've come out to shows ever, but especially this last year. Thank you for taking risks with me, and thank you for your support, and thank you for your kind words, your emails, the messages that you send, sharing things, and just all those are ways that kind of help me be able to do this inside a world that is has a lot of noise. And I want you to know that I really try hard not to be making more noise. That I think if I had a prime directive, at least one of them, I've said this to folks on the team before. It's like, I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of a solution. I don't want to be making more noise or putting people to sleep. I want to be creating cracks in the system and creating pause and trusting that in that pause, there's something important there to be heard, something that we need to hear, that I need to hear. And this is my practice too. It's been a pretty wild and tough end of the year for me. This is not, without getting into too much, personal stuff or professional stuff even, because it's frankly probably quite boring for you. I feel quite laid bare, and a bit broken on different levels personally. And there's been so many successes and so much, of course, to be grateful for. But I'm also feeling a bit like confused and lost. And part of that has to do with, what to do and how to interface with the world. I imagine a lot of you share these feelings at moments, maybe a lot right now, maybe in the past. But it seems to be a common theme as we're in these days. It's hard to know sometimes what to do, and at least my brain, which I identify as a male brain, looks for like solutions and doing. And a lot of the messages sometimes being received is the antithesis of that, of not doing. But at the same time, we want our lives and our work to be in alignment with, as I said before, a solution. And I'll be honest, I don't always know what the solution is. And I'll also be completely transparent in a lot of the methods that I do employ out there. Of course, they're messy, whether they're mixed with commerce and also trying to work in the spirit of the gift at the same time. It's tricky, and it's something that it's hard to always find, the way. So what lays forth in 2023, at least for me, I can say a lot of I don't know. And I'm asking for grace to continue to flow this direction, and our conversation to continue both literally and energetically, because music and the process of creation keeps me alive. And even when I say it that simply, it doesn't mean it's always easy. And I appreciate all the support that I have, even internally on my team. And there's been some changeover recently, and I'm welcoming forth just what we need, the kind of people and systems and support, so that we can figure out how to do this more gracefully. 'Cause sometimes it's like you try to do things in ways that have been done, or in systems that are kind of breaking down. You think about touring in a lot of way and its unsustainability, or the energetics of it, how difficult it is on everyone involved to do such a tour, both like the artist and the relationships of everyone with that artist. But our industry is built in a way that that's a big part of sustainability, and I want to figure that out better. And I can't exactly say how that's going to work. So I guess you're probably hearing a lot of ambiguity in my voice, and it is there. And I probably should stop dancing around and talking in vagaries. So I'll just let me let all the wisdom of the people who've been on this podcast speak. Maybe I'll find a time to go a bit deeper into any conclusions or unconclusions that I have, and I'll certainly maybe do that over on the Patreon, the council on Patreon. I'm going to share some things there to end out the year, because I'm so grateful for that community supporting me in any way. A couple bucks a month to people spending large, sums of their own personal money to help support this project. It means a lot. There are a lot of actual, real hard costs that go into just this podcast alone. And then there's also, it's a way of helping support all the other things going on in the East Forest ecosystem. So thank you to everyone on the council over there. I want to thank particularly everyone who is a council member. We do that monthly council together on Zoom, where I do live music meditations. I mean, it's so meaningful for me to actually get to see each other's faces and gather like that. So thank you to everyone who's a council member. And I also want to thank ML, who's been a council elder for a while now. It means a lot. And of course, our dear friend Andrew, who's been supporting in a lot of different ways. And I really appreciate, Andrew, our relationship and your support and the way it's grown. I appreciate that friendship, and I appreciate just having someone in my corner like that. So thank you so much, so much. If you also lastly, there was, of course, the live stream I did with Peter Broderick for the winter solstice. I'm not sure if you got a chance to see that. If you didn't, we're going to have it up for probably another week or two. I'll probably share a different link with it on the council for the folks on the council if they want to watch it anytime, ongoing. We might re-edit it and remix the music and bring it back up with sort of our original intention with Peter. But man, it was a real creative high moment for me. We improvised in the spirit of the ceremony energy for 4 hours, and I've never done that with another musician. And so doing that alone was fantastic and fun. But it was also musically, it birthed forth all sorts of new ideas I never would be able to do on my own. We had 2 pianos, vibraphones, his violin, our voices, some really cool pedals, a marimba. Did I say that? Lots of cool stuff. So if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. I think it's on the front page of eastforest.org as well. And it's a 4-hour ceremony with Peter Broderick. He's such a thank you to him for even being like, yeah, sure, let's play for 4 hours. And thank you to everyone who gave donations. You can still give donations. We're still in the red on that, the resources we put into that. But I never intended it to be a big money maker. But if you have resources you'd like to give back to us, I'd love to be able to pay Peter for his time and support his traveling all the way from Ireland. So thank you again. That was so much fun. And we'll look forward to doing something like that again in the future. And I just want to end this, being the end of the year, I want to thank some folks on my team that you don't hear much about. One of them is Miranda, who she's the one who helps post everything on social media and moderation, as well as with the podcast, and she helps me with other side projects. And we've been working together, I think, over 3 years. She's local here in Boise. So I just want to say thank you, Miranda, for sticking by me when things get vague or busy, or just rolling with the punches and showing up and trying to keep things moving and helping me out. It means a lot to me, and I look forward to growing together. I also want to thank Vivek. Vivek has been my lawyer for a while now too, but he's so much more than a lawyer. He's everything from he does everything. He's kind of a guy. What I love about him is that I can lean on him in ways. It's like, I need you to be management for a while. I need you to be an agent for a while. I need you to do whatever needs to be done. And he steps up, and he has a good time at it. And he really believes in this project and gives me important words of encouragement and really good tips right when I need them. And it's really saved my ass so many times. And so thank you for sticking by the project and for still being here with me and for stepping into 2023 together. And I also want to thank Lisa. Lisa's been a business manager for a while. And I know people are like, oh, business manager, like, sounds pretty mundane. And you know what? It's not mundane, because before Lisa, I was so stressed about like taxes and like, how do I do this? And am I doing this right? And all the crazy letters. Do you guys get those crazy letters from the IRS? I mean, I feel like every few weeks they have a letter that contradicts the old letter, and you can't call anybody. And she's been a huge help, just sort of helping me get organized on that regard, and just trying to, and like various royalties and publishing and this and that. It's like, that shit is, nobody understands it. Every time I've asked an artist about, like, do you understand publishing or how that works, they secretly tell me, like, I really don't know what's going on. I don't know how that works. So she's helping me keep the lights on in that regard, and I want to say thank you to her for that. It means a lot. And I want to give a shout out to Rich, who's my agent over in Europe and Asia and technically Australia, I think, too. And look, I've had to pull out of certain dates over there for all sorts of reasons in this crazy world. That's so crappy to do. And he's stuck by me, and we're working to get back there. It's hard to do, as you can imagine. It's almost always a loss financially, no matter what, even when you sell out. And he's patient, and he really believes in the project. So thank you so much, Rich. I should thank Sean, who is my manager for the past 6 months to a year. Sean's no longer with the project, but thank you for the time that you did give, and I appreciated your top level advice. It meant a lot to me. That's probably something I liked the most, or really appreciated the most. And you certainly will be missed in that regard. And will I be bringing on new management in the future? I would say I hope so, but that's something that's always so difficult to. It's such a unique relationship. There's really no rule book for how that works. You just have to find it and then see if it organically works, and then do it. And I'm such a unique project and such a crazy hard worker that I know I bring a lot to the table and a lot to do. We got a lot of ideas, and so we'll see what the future holds on that one. And I just want to thank John and Lewis and Mark. We've all been working hard on a documentary together. Everyone else has been working on that as well. And thank you to everyone who's given their time to be in the documentary. We've got a lot to do there. I want to thank Andrew, Scott, and Tiffany for helping support fund the film. We might need more support if anyone out there is looking to do it, but hopefully this is the year where we can put that thing together. And it's a massive project, so I just want to thank them all for stepping up and helping hold that light together. And speaking of Scott and Tiffany, special thank you to them individually and the whole team over at Bright Antenna. Bright Antenna is a record label we've been talking about working together, and I'm sure we will. And I'm so looking forward to that, and like the generosity that they've all thrown just to like learning about East Forest and coming to events and retreats. And it's truly been amazing. So thank you, Scott and Tiffany. I look forward to deepening our friendship and our collaboration. And I can't wait to seeing what new avenues that brings for all of us and everyone over at Bright Antenna too. Thank you. Really, really appreciate everything and all the belief you have in this work. And, Lewis and Rod and I started Journey Space, and, I want to thank them both, and Lewis for standing by me from the beginning and working on that project. We're trying to, maybe create something that's ahead of our time. We're still going to keep jiggering it and offering things because we do believe in it, and everyone who's participated in it, I know, finds it really meaningful because it is. But making that into something that can sustain itself, that we're not just supporting financially on our end, we haven't quite cracked the code on that. And as we know, it's like a strange time right now for investments and psychedelic adventures in general. But thank you, Lewis, for keeping that truth alive and doing that together, and for always being a sort of something for me to bounce ideas off of and helping me also, envision where things can go overall with anything that I'm up to. That brotherhood means a lot to me. Thank you. And I also, of course, want to thank Radha, because Radha isn't on the team, but, she is on the team because she has to listen to me talk about East Forest all the time and gives me great advice. And more than that, over the last few years, she's become more and more involved with our projects in the live space from, of course, the retreats we do. We just did a wonderful retreat at Esalen, which was magical. And she's a huge part of it. 50% or more. And beyond that, we just did that whole tour, the ceremony tour we just did on the West Coast. She opened every show. And when I say opened, I mean set the tone, did this wonderful sort of guidance meditation, embodiment exercise to drop us in. So I just want to say thank you, Radha, for supporting me as a person and a human being, and for showing up like that professionally and giving your time. I know there's so much you could be doing with your time. So many people want to work with her, and there's too much. She does a lot of coaching and ketamine therapy and yoga work here in town, and even remotely, people are. Her schedule doesn't have enough time, and so it means so much to me that she gives it to you. I'm sorry, I want to say to us, but to me. But she's giving it to all of us when we're out there on the road, and we're all better for that. And I know I am, and she saved my life more than once. So thank you, Radha. Well, I'm sure there's many more people I could definitely thank, but I've been talking for a while. So let's get into this. Let's stay focused, Krishna, on the podcast at hand, which is some highlights from the year. We're going to call it the best of 2022. And I hope you have a beautiful and happy new year. Get some time to rest in this time of winter solstice or summer solstice for our friends on the other hemisphere. And feel free to dive into the back catalog. Again, the episode links are in the show notes. And I will catch you next year, my friends. You keep walking that walk. Don't take any shit, but if you do, do it with grace. I asked you about trust, and
yes,
this knowing is the trust, in a sense. It becomes, in a sense, trust not being a choice. It's an acceptance. It's an experience.
Yes. All experiences come and go. They have a beginning, middle, and end duration. Is this an experience that comes and goes? Or seemingly eclipsed by the attention going to something or like that? Appears to be eclipsed. Can it even be eclipsed even?
No, we just sort of accept and forget. People say remember, right?
Yes.
That's a word that's thrown around a lot. Like we remember, or what does it mean to remember?
Yes. While we have a strong sense of personal existence, we will have the feeling of remembering and forgetting this. But to this itself, which I say is the essence of our being, it is beyond remembering and forgetting within itself. And what is aimed at in I would say, really authentic self-discovery is to keep paying attention to this, bring your attention to this. Because what happens is that the flow of the dance of personhood appears to eclipse this knowing in you, which is more than a knowing. It's a knowing being. It's a oneness in that. And so when we sit like we have just done, and you also, I believe you're recording this, you can listen again, and you can see that actually this is what is called awareness, no? Pure awareness. And if I should say to you, can it be lost? You have already said, no, it cannot be lost. Or I may say to you, try to be not aware. And you see that, wow, it's impossible. It's impossible to not be aware. But at the same time, the force of tendencies and habits in the mind can create a masking it, as it were. Just like sometimes I say that a fingernail can cover the sun, but the sun experiences no covering up. And that in just a simple exercise of sitting with this and clarifying and checking in, we call this the invitation to freedom. And many people are invited to sit for 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, and just to listen and follow. Not just believe, but to actually follow. And what do you find? And to stay with this discovering. And as simple as that. Somehow, in just putting the attention here in the heart of your own awareness, like this, magical, mysteriously, things begin to orient themselves within your being. They come to some kind of harmony, and naturally you discover that actually, rather than trying to push things about and try to make things go this way, that way. You're being in harmony. You're being in harmony in your own being. Your life somehow exudes this harmony. Your intuitive functions relaxes and flow. You become much more peaceful, less afraid, more present, and wise actually, without having to study books and to do all these other things for a moment. That sense of centering is, I put it, one of the most valuable exercises. I don't even really want to call it so much a meditation. I call it a meditation. It's simply a guidance, a mirror. I sometimes call it the mirror of God. It's a mirroring of what really is here beyond the field of things that come and go, and even of the mind and personality. All these are like flickering lights in it, but it is not affected by that. Now, someone may say, but what's the point? I don't want to be not affected by life. I said, actually, you really do. Not that you are giving up, but that in the midst of the storm, that can be a storm, you find there is a silence and a stillness within you, which makes you much more able to flow and to function even in the most trying of times. You don't get thrown out of yourself. So that is simply an exercise that I would offer to those who are so much loving your work and so on, to say, if you feel inclined, try this little exercise. A little pilgrimage within your own self. Sometimes we have to be rendered desperate. We're just made empty.
So for people
Sometimes
who are
when we are curious,
living in a time of
we learn.
information sickness where there's just, they know too much in a way, and we're getting every piece of bad news all day long, pinging on our phones, and but they feel deeply in their hearts that they want to be part of a positive change, but they feel powerless. They feel very much just an individual in a sea. What do you say to the people who they want to be part of a positive change for themselves and for the world?
Well, I really love that question. It's so real and practical, and that's what you call the information sickness. I think it's so true. I think, we invent things, and we've been inventing a lot of things lately, such as social media. And we just put it out there. We get excited about it. Some people get real rich by it. But we don't stand back and say, okay, what's the shadow side to this? What's the shadow side of social media? And just what you said, what if you're hearing the bad news 24/7? How good is that for your soul? How good is that for your energy, for your body? So, this is the danger of being human, especially in a time like this when things are shooting around so fast. The news is, as you say. And so, we really have to breathe deep and step back a bit. And again, take a look what the mystics are saying about silence. And silence, isn't just about not talking. It's about unplugging and not taking in, input. I mean, that's what meditation is, isn't it? It's letting go of that input, just to be with being, to be with silence. And so I think the first thing I'd say is that we all have to put some parameters on the news. And then we have to look carefully at who we're allowing into our ears. I mean, it's a sacred thing to invite a guest to your home. Well, and then to invite the intimacy of what comes into your ears and all that. What kind of music do you listen to, and so on, and what kind of music do you make? So there are just many lessons here about the via negativa from the mystics about how to be still. And again, that ancient teaching, and you find it, of course, in the East, but it's in the West too. The psalmist says, be still and learn that I am God. So we all have to find ways to be still. And being still includes, not just living in a world of media and noise and bad news. Because it's no question, the human heart can die from too much bad news. Despair kills the heart. You have to balance that with some good news. And sometimes you have to be a hunter-gatherer to find the good news and the joy and the strength and the courage. I mean, even in a time of evil, say like the Ukraine situation, even good can come out of evil. And so you have all this example of courage and generosity and everything going on there with all kinds of people trying to help the refugees and all the rest, and the courage of standing up to a dictator and all that and his army. So, we have to kind of draw lessons. It's kind of like digging. I mean, it's a process. What are the good things that we can meditate on, as well as the hard things and the terrible things? And of course, this is where music comes in too, to feed the soul. And what music do we go to be rejuvenated, and what do we make? And then nature, of course, going into nature, because nature is not waging these wars against us. I just this morning, I have this daily meditation thing, and just this morning's was on words from astronauts and cosmonauts, so Americans and Russians getting along, who left the Earth, who went to the moon. And they all had these amazing awakenings. No question about it. Spiritual awakenings. All those who write about it, just like some people do with certain forms of drugs or with music and other things, and with religion. Here's just one statement that I just love, that Edgar Mitchell, who went all the way to the moon, says, I suddenly experienced, traveling home and seeing the Earth, I suddenly experienced the universe as an intelligent, loving, harmonious being. And this was an experience. This wasn't something in a book. He experienced it. He tasted it. That's what mysticism is, this tasting. He said, on returning Earth, my view of our planet was a glimpse of divinity. Now, this is not a priest or minister talking. This is an astronaut, But they had to pick up on religious language to tell us what happened to their hearts. And a Russian cosmonaut said, during a space flight, the psyche of each astronaut is reshaped. Having seen the sun, the stars, and our planet, you become full of life and softer. You begin to be more kind and patient with the people around you. At any rate, that is what happened to me. Now, this can happen with astronauts and cosmonauts, but hopefully it can happen closer to Earth and cheaper with the rest of us too. But it just shows there's something inside of us that wants to love. And that's the mystic inside of us. The mystic is a lover.
Eventually, whatever it may be, expand yourself out as much as you can via some new technological, neurological interface. Experience the sum total of everyone's feeling all over the planet simultaneously. Whatever it may be, you're still probably going to run into the same problem. There might not be a way out through technology, magic, or any external saving factor.
The economy of scale, like bigger is better, that we're like super wrapped up in right now, is really what you're talking about. And we're in this massive like external example of it where everything is quantified, everything is reviewed, everything is data and stats. And that's got to be, I know as a creator, and you've got to feel what I'm in the middle of too. Like we're just in a sea of that world.
Yes.
And as the older you get, as you're saying, the more you realize like, well, any of this external like success or achievement is not really going to be attached to that inner wealth. And you just start to see it more and more and more. But yet we're in this world, like we're really going head first. We're really committing to this like economy of scale. Bigger is better.
Yeah. Kali Yuga. It makes sense. I think the more suffering there is, the more you would see an amplification of reaching out, expanding, trying to gratify with increasing intensity. This is for me, like having kids and a family has been revelatory for me, because sitting around the table with my family, just eating biscuits and listening to like country music. We're in the South. I have experienced the highest states of ecstasy and connection with the divine than any of the crazy things that I have done as I've attempted to gratify my senses, And so this is, I like the what do they call it? The Sanatan Dharma, the eternal path, It's very simple. Like Neem Karoli Baba was a family guru. He was always telling people, get married, go and like have a family. Or if you were having problems with your mom or your brother or your sister or whatever, he would send you away to make that work. I've listened to some wonderful conversation he was having with a family. They translated it, and it was just it wasn't like talking about Ram or anything. He was asking questions like, Do you all sit at the table when you eat? Things like that. Very simple things that, from the perspective of EDC, from the perspective of being in some massive music festival with fucking fireworks and ketamine inhalers or whatever you're doing, and like you're or orgies or fame or any of that stuff could seem as boring could be. And yet, gathering around a dinner table with people you love is older than anything. It's like an ocean. This has been something that's been going on for as long as humans have been wandering around. We sit together and we eat, and hopefully we look across the fire of the table at each other and love each other and laugh. And then, which is why maybe there's some wonderful benefit from those of us who have become completely enamored with the external modes of sense gratification that are available to us now, is that when you finally do get lucky enough that you're no longer stuck in your phone or trying to find just the perfect match of psychedelics and fucking and music, when you get lucky enough that you find yourself just doing something normal like that, you might have the most incredible relief when you see, oh shit, right, this is it. Nothing's really changed that much. This is it. This is where it's at. The basic stuff, making food for people, serving them food, helping your community, your micro community or macro community, just doing that. All the other stuff, fireworks show, that to me is something really beautiful. And that's a cosmic joke too. That's something that will never stop being funny for me, is that sitting around with my family, eating, cooking for my kids, living a life that prior to having it, I always thought as like almost like abject failure, happens to be the most incredible spiritual experience I've ever had in my life. So to me, there's something really funny about that. I mean, just because I'm a fool. It's not like that's news. That's what you read, and Srila Prabhupada talks about it. Everyone talks about it.
But it's like you don't want it to be true early in your life. You don't want it to be true.
No, man.
But then when the truth becomes real to you, it's just like dying into the like you said, the bliss. It's like, fuck. It's always been here, and it's right here, and like it's almost like the family is the core class of the human curriculum in a sense. And we knew it, but we're like, no, it's got to be fame, or it's got to be the money, or the amazing experience,
Threesomes.
Yeah.
Truly. I thought that. You would think that, but you think things like that. You're like, that's the answer. Threesomes. That'll do it. It'll be threesomes. That's what's missing from my life. Well, then you want like a
But I don't want to not talk about, especially now.
I think it's helpful
teasing
to
people.
share what it was like for you.
There were a couple things that came to me, like direct questions. I would just ask a direct question, and I would get unbelievable responses. They were extremely clear, like with a visual and like sort of a voice in my head, like, here's the answer. And I'd be like, oh my God. And some of those answers like healed certain traumas in my body that I've been dealing with for years.
Will you tell us more about that?
Well, and then I was going to say, and there's final summation where I was trying to like crystallize the entire thing into something to carry that would translate into three-dimensional reality. And that I could share. And I'm happy to share the other stuff, but I don't know if that's more personal. I don't know if it's as,
It's more vulnerable.
Well, I guess it's relevant. And, it relates to a story. I'm sorry if this is rambling. It relates to a story one of our participants told too at Esalen. I was feeling some grief, and a lot of grief. And I think I asked a question essentially like, well, why? Why? I understand they all won and we're this and we're doing this and it's all the same thing, but then why do it? Why go through all this pain? It's so horrible. And I said, for instance, I remember I was thinking about you and I was thinking about my former partner, Karina, and I was like, all that horrible shit we went through and then divorced and Karina and I still are friends and are close, but still we went through that fire. And the answer I got back was, he says, you guys, you're all just souls working together. And it's like, look what you did. It's perfect. It's like through that experience, you burned through karma and then you created the opportunity to have even more love, not on a scale, but that you have now. Look what you have with Roddy, this beautiful thing that levels you didn't have before. And Karina has a child now and this new marriage, and that's like an increasing of love. And it's sort of saying all of that love, the new love and the old, it's all one love. And there's no mistakes there. It's this process of evolution to increase love. And if it's all one thing, it's like the great I, am increasing love, generating more love. And seeing it from that perspective, I mean, talk about helping shame dissolve.
Yeah.
Or guilt. I mean, that's the pain I was working, shame.
And guilt. Yeah.
And it was like, that's what I was asking. It's like, I feel so, all the things are choices. And it's like, but it's like, hey, bro, see it? You see it? It's okay. And so kind of that and a few other revelations like that led me to.
And I just want to point out too, that you did have this really intense somatic response where your body was moving, shaking, writhing. It from the outside, witnessing you, it seemed like almost like something that has been just lodged in you finally moved through. And I would say, my witness of you, it's been a week now. It's been only 1 week since then. Even your posture's gotten better. The way you are in your body, what I witnessed has actually shifted. Like a weight has come off of you.
I definitely feel a shift when I even think about some of those things about regrets. They don't have the charge they had.
Wow.
And there's a real I feel in my body, but it's in my mind too. My mind's no longer like, but. It's like, because it's all this great love. And I'm just like, right.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, right. It's the same thing. Well, I don't want to get into all these tangents about.
They're not tangents.
What we were talking about, my father, the other day, I was having, it's always good to own your stuff. And something was coming up a couple weeks ago about business stuff, East Force business stuff, and new relationship. And I was like, I know this isn't about this other person. And I said, I feel like it's bringing up something in me about my dad. And you did a little somatic work with me, and it quickly went to a memory.
Yeah.
And about when I was, 6 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this memory that's come up actually a lot for me, where I was supposed to run this race, probably like a 2K race or something as a little kid. It's called the Awesome 3000.
Probably
or
a 1K race.
3000. Awesome 3000. And my dad took me, it was probably Saturday or Sunday, and it was in the morning. And I remember we pulled up vividly. And the moment we pulled up, the person shot the starting gun and all the kids took off. And my dad said, oh, just hop out and join. And I said no, and I didn't. And it was this like ridiculous feeling of failure that almost pushed me through a lot of my life of not wanting to be a failure, which is silly because when we went in there somatically together, you pointed out something now that when I think about it has dissolved the entire situation. It's like your dad took a 6-year-old and was late. You were not late.
It's not your fault.
Krishna. Yeah, my dad made a mistake. And moreover, now that I'm a part-time stepdad, he was probably psyched. He's like, awesome. We can go home or go get some breakfast. I don't have to go to this shitty race with the kids. The whole thing was actually positive for him, and it was his fault. but I've been taking it on this whole time. Like,
I'm a failure. I let my
Yes.
dad down.
Yes.
I will never succeed. I didn't do the thing.
So it's the same kind of story reversal where you
Yeah.
just change your angle of looking at it, and it completely changes the charge of the shame or the guilt or the grief.
So how do you feel about that situation now?
Same thing. I just keep times like, yeah, but I didn't do anything wrong. My dad,
He was
what am I
late.
supposed to do? Like, hey, Dad, I got to hit that car. We're going to be late. I'm a 6-year-old kid. Like,
You'd been carrying it like it was all your responsibility.
all my fault. I blew it for my dad.
Yeah.
Anyway, to sum this up and round this whole thing up, so in the journey with you the other night and the group, as I was coming out of it, I was thinking, what's the translation of this energy? And your hand on my chest, on my heart, was this beautiful, lovingly. I was like, so lovingly. And it was the representation, a physical through line from that hand on my heart all the way to the all that is. And I'm like, that's all that is this lovingly energy. So through the pain, right, of like the divorce, for instance, that is a lovingly energy to create more love, to be more love, because it all is just now more love. So in essence, the grace we are given, because without that, with the absence of it, would essentially be abject chaos, horror. The horror is that you're feeling, but then there's that hand. Just like 2 years ago, the song now Can't Fall Out of Love. It's like, but you will never fall out of that bubble of love because you can't. Whether you look at it like 50.1% or that's just what gives the yin yang enough to turn and create all the creation so that it can blossom all the time into more love. So lovingly as an energy and a representation of like that all things are and can be that through your perspective again, how you look at it, because that's what it is. And therefore, just breathing even, like adding the feeling and word lovingly to an in-breath and an out-breath. I started practicing that in the experience. Like, it was teaching me like ways to literally like bring how to be a conduit from whatever you want to call the upper dimensional realms to this three-dimensional space. Mm-hmm. It's always here, but how you can feel it and be more transmuting of it. So, and I told you, I was like, I've been working on slowly the concept of another music, sort of a soundtrack for the Psychedelic Practitioner, Volume 3. And as like the title it should be lovingly. I'm still holding that message and that truth. But lovingly, I love it when I say it. I love how I feel. I love the energy and the sound, like as a mantra of that word.
Yeah. Well, coming out of it, it's only been a week again, but I commented to you just in the past few days post that session, you had shifted so much in your interaction with me, like your ability to be lovingly in so many situations. It feels like a tenderness, a presence, an allowing, a service that's coming from you, where sometimes energy can be like edgy, what's in it for me, mine.
Well, it helps me step back to the bigger picture, and when you yourself are a representation, let's call it the Great Mother, the loveliness of creation. You were quite literally like a manifestation of it, and you are a manifestation of it. And I'm like, when I have that thing, it's like being upset about the nasty thing you said because you're having a bad day or it's PMS or whatever it is. It gives it perspective. It doesn't
What's the
change
perspective?
Well, we're all human beings that, we get tired. We're not at our
Hungry.
best. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like that you're an animal. You're an animal. And so, but at least you can have it sometimes, even when that's really strong, I'm feeling my worst. There's still that part of you that can keep the witness consciousness of all that is and say, I really do though see the bigger picture. Like you were saying, like this will pass whatever it is. And it's not all that is. What all that is that loveliness.
Yes. Yes.
Learning to listen then would be to be part of it is to be open to receiving those gifts.
Yeah.
It's a kind of receptivity to that beauty.
Yeah. Yeah. Witnessing beauty gives hope too. That's why the role of artists and musicians is so important. You know,
Oh, say that again? No.
Yeah. Because, like,
what is the role of beauty in this time? Because some people would say that's a sideshow.
no, it's not a sideshow. The future is built on beauty. I like to say that it's that humanity aspires to beauty rather than height, quality rather than quantity in a more beautiful world. And any act of senseless beauty is a prayer for that future. It's a declaration of this is what's important, even if I can't justify it, even if I'm getting no selfish benefit from it, even if I cannot explain to you how this is going to help the oppressed or help the extinguished, help the ecosystems that are being exploited, help anything. I can't explain how I'm going to do it, but I'm listening to something else within me that knows that this is important. I want to validate that because we do not know how the world actually works. The old story's view of causality is woefully insufficient to explain the things that I've experienced in my life and that many others have experienced in their life. We have to, if we want to be as powerful as we truly are, we have to open up to a much larger kind of causality that draws from the orchestrating intelligence of the whole world and that communicates to us what's important and what is ours to do through making us care about something, by making us come alive for something. So if someone says, well, Trevor, justify yourself. Here you are, the world is in crisis and you're just making music. Let's put that off until we've solved our problems. And then we can enjoy, you know? And maybe there are external voices or internal voices that come with that criticism sometimes. And maybe you cannot answer them. I don't want you to have to answer them. I want you to listen to what you love doing, regardless of whether it's useful or not. Because the mind doesn't know what's useful.
Mm.
You don't know what some creation of music or art or love or like you said at the beginning, like petting your cat or holding the hand of somebody as they're going through the death process. You don't know how that ripples out into the future. Sometimes you might be able to concoct a chain of events in which your humble, invisible act of love influences the future. And sometimes you might not be able to. Like if you spend time holding the hand of somebody who's passing, how's that going to affect the future, Trevor? They're going to be dead anyway. And that moment of forgiveness that they had in those last minutes, how is that going to affect the world? But something in us knows that it does. That's why we're attracted to it. That's why the best part of ourselves draws us to do those things. And in these times of uncertainty and despair, what else are we going to listen to when every practical plan to save the world is actually hopeless? If it's up to us and our technologies of control to save the world, it is hopeless. Therefore, we have to listen to something else if we are going to actually walk the path from here to a more beautiful world. We cannot even see the whole path. At most, we can see 1 or 2 steps in front of us. We recognize those steps. Here's what is mine to do right now. And sometimes you don't even know if you're going to land. I like to say the path will rise to meet us. You take that step and you find, that there is a path after all, and that this irrational choice motivated by love and beauty and service to life actually did make a difference. And how could I have ever predicted that would be important? That maybe that like for me sometimes, like I like, oh, fine, okay, I'll talk to you. I get distracted by somebody, and then it turns out that was the best thing I could have done, even though it seemed inconsequential at the time to my mind. So, the mind today, for many reasons, is unreliable. Partly because of this bewildering, contradictory information environment that where different authorities don't even agree on what's real, like things separating into these different reality bubbles. Partly because of that, partly because our minds are so steeped in a Newtonian force-based causality and ideology of control. And partly just because we're human. Like the mind, it's always been unreliable by itself. And it's especially unreliable today when the elements of our reason have been corrupted. So especially today, more than any other time, we have to listen to the heart. And the mind, it needs a new logic. We need a new story that aligns with the heart. Because right now, a lot of times the mental story directly contradicts what the heart is asking us to do. So I work with the story and try to bring heart and mind into alignment. And failing that, if you have to choose, listen to the heart.
How do you think that AI or machine learning tools will change music creation beyond like the ways that we're doing like intelligent EQ and things like that? I mean, do you have any fears or thoughts that our jobs will be outsourced to an AI that makes 1,000 or 1,000,000 songs while you're sleeping just for each person?
Not really. I think, it's going to open a lot of doors artistically. We'll be able to express ourselves more fully, in my mind, and that's a great thing. And also it'll be, the arts can be more accessible. It's been the invention of the digital audio workstation, essentially you've got your computer and you can make music, has created this huge explosion of electronic music and all sorts of music around the world, and that's been a great thing, spawning all sorts of genres and creativity. And I think machine learning systems will open the doors further in terms of enabling us to express ourselves, and to use music and arts as a means of expressing things that are important to us. So I think in that sense, I see it to be really positive. In terms of us losing our jobs, as musicians, I don't think. I think the thing with music and with art in general is, yes, we might want to go to a concert by a machine learning system, but essentially we're humans and we're stuck inside this this vessel of being a human, which has its challenges, and we want to communicate with other people about the human condition and about this thing that the life we have to deal with. And music is a communication between two humans. Like if I say, I don't know, the Beatles or Nirvana to you, you don't think about the waveform. You think about the humans at the other end and their lifestyle and what they did and what they meant to the world, and there's all these like human associations that go into listening to music. And if the AI system was doing it devoid of those stories, I don't think it really connects with us as human listeners. We want to know that the person at the other end was having a great time, or that they were having a really terrible time and they were tortured and they were sharing and that with them. And I think it's important to have a human at the other side. So I don't think that while the AI pure removing the humans production of in the creation of music systems might be interesting, I don't think they're going to fully take over. So I see it more in a positive light in terms of opening creative doors. There's lots of things I want to do musically that I can't yet, and I can see that machine learning systems are opening the doors for me to be able to do the things I want. So it's enabling. And the other thing is, I mean, I'm already not a trained musician of any sort. I'm trained as a scientist, and I love music and I have a connection to it, and I use machines to enable me to express myself. And I already use generative processes in my music, and I get the machines to do make these complex messes, which I then curate. I'm a curator of my machines.
Oh, so wow! What a phrase!
Sense,
a curator.
Yeah, in that sense, it's really just it's just another step along that path.
Well, one thing Peter Broderick on the podcast, when we talked about this, says he'd give the robots a run for their money. So I think he's excited to see if he could beat the machines. But that's a really interesting thing, being a curator of the machines. If you flip that around, sort of like the other polarity of that, do you though feel like the machines are allowing you to share a part of your humanity, dare I say your soul, in a way that you don't feel you are otherwise? You talked about feeling trapped in your biology. Like, that's the human condition. So is the machine, the tools, giving you this sort of connective language to share something deeper that you can't otherwise?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an accurate description, I'd say, for me, the feeling of it. It's like, I don't know if it comes from some sort of innate fear of death or something. It's like I'm trying to extract myself out of this vessel, out of the constraints. I want to be free of the constraints of, and the annoyances of existing inside this flesh body, and try and, so the machines definitely enable that, this, I find something every so often and I just, it feels like part of my soul, and I'm able to put it out, and that there's something deeply satisfying about doing that. So yeah, I think really what I want is just to be able to map my brain structure to a digital format and just get away entirely from the body and go into the digital realm of some sort. But I think I'm not going to get. I think I'm a bit too old for that. Maybe if I was 2 years old now or something, maybe I'd have a chance of it. But I don't know if we're quite going to get there. Or by the time we do get there, my brain's going to be too ruined to be worth preserving. I don't think they're going to
put any 2-year-olds or babies into, like, they're going to smash them into silicon or something. It's like, the babies are perfect.
That might have sounded like I was implying we should put 2-year-old brains into machines. No. What I was implying was that if I was, 40 years younger, I might have, by the time I got to 40, there might be a chance that or 50, there might be a chance that I'd get to do that. But I think in my lifetime, I'm probably not going to get to do that. And maybe maybe even in the next generation, maybe it's going to be a few generations. It's hard to say with these things.
What are the things that you think you're wanting to do that you can't, that you think you will be with newer computer tools?
So one of the very tangible things that I've been playing with a lot already is this idea of liquid timbre. So, the way the quality of a certain instrument, or the way a certain synth sounds, you play melodies and harmonies, but they have a particular timbre which identifies their source. And I've been playing a lot with, I use lots of modulation, and I have my synths sort of constantly wandering around. And again, with my percussion as well, this idea that I want to make an album where the same sound never plays twice. The same drum sound never happens twice. Every sound is unique in the whole album.
Wow.
So that's something I've been aspiring to musically for years, and trying to develop techniques for having my drums constantly, this organic, constant morphing and constant variation, and the complexity and the sort of organic richness. But it's something I haven't been able to fully realize. But machine learning systems open the door to, entirely new sorts of synthesis, and also entirely, it's the sort of thing that is becoming, I can see that sort of thing's amenable with machine learning systems, in terms of they can learn to emulate lots of different sources, but you can also make them wander between those sources. So I essentially want the synth that constantly wanders between sounding like a classic synthesizer, or a piano, or a car driving down the road, or a lawnmower, or a bird, or anything you can imagine. I want it to wander between these things, so you get these weird halfway between the lawnmower and the synth, or whatever, like halfway between the sound of the black hole collapsing with another black hole and a piano, or whatever it is. I want to go into bits of the parameter space that we haven't been to before, and I also want to wander around that space and have my melodies built of these, and my drums built of these constantly morphing, alien soundscapes.
Wow.
That's so anyway. But I haven't managed to get my hands on the correct. I'm doing a few projects with some machine learning people, but I haven't quite managed to get exactly what I want yet. But that's one of the things. The other thing that really interests me in that realm is the idea that you can feed a system, the real basics of what music is. So, if you say music is a pattern in a sound wave, what's the Shannon information, right? The Shannon information is this, the scientific definition of a way of quantifying information. You could say, what's the information density, essentially, and get some real basics about the structure of the information encoded in sound, and then say to get a machine learning system to then build other types of waveforms which have similar information density, or similar, the bare minimum of what you need to put in, so that it recreates something akin to music, but something that in theory could sound entirely foreign to us. So I love the idea that you would get this thing, it would spit out this thing, and you would know that the information structure, or the density of information in this new waveform is similar to what we can deal with, as human brains, or as humans, we should be able to figure it out. But when you first hear it, it just sounds like noise, or like a total mess. But you've programmed in, that the system's been designed to, have structural similarities enough. I love the idea that you could find something that would sound terrible, and then you keep listening, and maybe a week later or a month later, suddenly it would sound like the most beautiful thing. You could discover this entire new, musical world.
This is rich territory. I think it would be morally reprehensible to try to get rid of our metacognition, because countless beings have died bloody, painful deaths over 4 billion years to allow us to exist. We are at the tip of the arrow of evolution, and it has been a bloodbath of unspeakable pain. So to now go and spit on it and say we don't need it, I think that is one of the most morally reprehensible things we could do. We are invested with a responsibility like nothing else in nature, nothing else that we know of. And we have to bear the weight of that responsibility. We have to make something out of it. We must make something out of it in honor to everything that has preceded us and allowed us to be here looking at the world and saying, this is not how things should be. That, a lot was spent on getting a pair of eyes in this universe to be able to look at the world this way, metacognitively, and to run away from it is beyond an offense. It's just an unspeakable, morally reprehensible thing to do. So no, I think we have to engage with it. Metacognition is the source of our human suffering. If we didn't have metacognition, we would be living in the present like cats do. So we would have pain, but not suffering. So we pay a huge price for it as well, but we have to pay that price. And I think the Western understanding of Eastern spirituality is cartoonish in the sense that all it seems to seek, by and large, is to be anesthetized from suffering, We want to get rid of suffering. That's why we go spiritual. Not all of us, but the ones, I think, who really have an understanding of what it means to achieve spiritual goals, they would know that, oh man, that's not the end of suffering. You don't know what you're trying to get. If you knew it, you'd think again. But most people, they are in it to stop suffering. They are looking for a narcotic, for anesthesia. And I think that's a cartoonish understanding of what Eastern spirituality is. But even if it were not, even if this were actual Eastern spirituality, as a sort of an attempt to be anesthetized from this condition we call life, I think that's not the way to go then. I would still think that there is a better way to go. We are invested with the full weight of nature's moral responsibility. Morality happens through us. And that doesn't make morality untrue. No, it makes it very true, but true because of us. And that is a moral responsibility level that I think most people, if they would really grok it, they would recoil from it instinctively. It would be a knee-jerk reaction to recoil from it. And they would prefer materialism and banality in an absolute vacuum of moral responsibility. Whatever you did in your life, good or bad, when you die, you're dead. That's it. And nothing has meaning anyway. This is incredibly seducing. We don't see how seducing it is because we take it for granted. We think it's true. So we don't understand how seductive it is. But when our worldview changes, because there is only so far you can go with something that is internally contradictory and empirically untenable. At some point you go like, yeah, okay, we can't sustain this fairy tale anymore. The moment that happens, we will miss materialism, because then we cannot take it for granted anymore, and we'll realize suddenly how much moral solace it gave us. It basically eliminated moral responsibility from human life. And I don't think that is the way to go. I think that's an affront against nature. But there is a price for facing the truth. And that's a price that most people naively think is not there. They think, oh, it would be great if I really believe that I will never die as far as my core subjectivity is concerned. I mean, the individual self will die just like your dream avatar dies when you wake up in the morning. You don't go around mourning the death of your dream avatar when you wake up. Neither will we. But most people think that if they truly believe that the core subjectivity would survive and that death is not the end, that it would be all great. Everything would be fantastic. They don't know what is awaiting them. But anyway.
Well, what is waiting them? I mean, essentially what I'm hearing you say is that this kind of personal responsibility, it does boil down to a level of personal choice, that there's this moral responsibility, and that has to come down to essentially the choices we're making in our lives, even if this, circling back to the beginning of our conversation, even if it is sort of unfolding in a very natural way.
Well, how do I put this? I think the return of meaning pays off for all the negatives. But most people do not really have a clear conception of the weight that a less distorted view of reality places on them. And it can range from relatively small things like a very concrete sense of moral responsibility. That's tough for a lot of people. But it's a relatively small thing in relation to the others. Another thing, fear of death, because death is an experience that you will undergo and you do not know what it will feel like. All you know is that all the references that make you comfortable, they are not going to be there. That's tough. That's a big thing to live with when you truly understand that this is what's going to happen. But it's also small in comparison to the other things that I can't really explain. I can only talk around it. And one way to talk around it is to describe it as the vertigo of eternity, which, in our confrontation with naked reality, is it has the qualities of vertigo. Milan Kundera explained in his book, The Unbearable Lightness of Being from the 80s, won a Nobel Prize in Literature for that. It's a fantastic book. In that book, which is a fiction book, he explains what vertigo is. Vertigo is not the fear to fall. Vertigo is the gut desire to jump. And what you then fear is that gut part of yourself. You are terrified of that part of yourself that looks down and, oh, it wants to jump. It wants to go. It wants to go into free fall and lose all the references, all sense of safety. And that's the fear. We fear ourselves in vertigo because vertigo is actually the desire to let go. And a confrontation with a felt confrontation, an immediate, non-mediated, direct confrontation with reality as it is, which means confronting the self as it actually is, has the qualities of vertigo. It ropes you in, but it terrifies you of yourself. That it's the vertigo of eternity. I don't know how to put this. I'm not an enlightened person, but I suspect that the vertigo of eternity is the antechamber of enlightenment. And if that is so, I don't want to be enlightened. You know what I mean? I'll gladly give it a pass.
Wow.
And that's what most people don't really grok, especially Westerners practicing Eastern spirituality. You know, they go all with that benevolent smile and they think, no, I'm transcending suffering. Actually, they're just sublimating suffering. It's a completely different psychological process. And they think that, oh, it's so comforting and warm and fuzzy. Right. Wait and see. You know, if they succeed, then they'll get a glimpse of what it really is. And it may be peaceful in a sense, but I'm not willing to pay the price for that peacefulness, if you ask me.
And so the role of suffering to you is what?
Well, that suffering is nature's means to make us ask the big question. You see, 4 billion years of a bloodbath were invested into developing a metacognitive being who can ask the questions, because that's the role of metacognition. The role of metacognition is to ask the questions, not to provide the answers. The answers arise spontaneously. But you have to ask the right question. We underestimate the value of asking the right question. If you ask the right question, you're 95% there. The rest happens spontaneously. It's a sort of a spontaneous reaction of nature. The answers just come. But you have to ask the right question, and that's very difficult and can only be done with a lot of metacognition. 4 billion years of a bloodbath were invested into equipping us to ask the question, and we don't ask the question unless we suffer. So suffering is the natural mechanism to force us to confront reality and ask the deep questions. Who are we? What is going on? That's the deepest of all questions. What is going on? What is actually going on? Because if you stop to sincerely evaluate our circumstances, you understand that this is the deepest question, and we are nowhere near an answer. This is a mighty strange condition of being alive, fighting thermodynamics at all time to maintain ourselves out of thermodynamic equilibrium by eating other living beings. And then we die. What is that? What is time? Time is the greatest mystery because it's obviously there and it's obviously not there. Both are obvious. But if we didn't suffer, I would tell you what would happen. We would spend our lives surfing, eating strawberries, making love, basking under the sun. We would live an Epicurean life and superficial life of pleasures and lack of worry. And if you are having fun and you're not worried, you just don't ask the questions. And 4 billion years of literal blood, sweat, and tears have been spent into equipping us to ask the questions. And we don't, unless we are forced to by suffering. Suffering is a fundamental tool of nature.
feel, do you know like Anna Breyerbush, I think is her name? She's an animal communicator.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Would you feel similar but with plants? Do you feel like you've been able to go on these really deep levels of like more than just feelings, but a form of communication?
Oh, definitely. But I feel like I have that with all of nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And the sensitivity with the plants for sure. But it's again, like the plants help us, and my experience open the doors of perception. It's like we are able to connect with plants and animals and birds and life without all the shroud, the things shrouding that. And so that direct communication is available to all of us, but we've been so conditioned to not see anything other than humans as worthy of connecting with. Yeah.
We're animals too.
We are.
And we're part of nature. We're made of the same stuff.
Yep.
And we're walking around and we have this incredible ability to make choices here and do things, positive and negative. Have you felt like there's any sort of overarching message or conversation happening right now between the non-human world and the humans?
I mean,
or is it almost an indifference in a sense? It's like,
no, the beings are really confused. They wonder where their human brothers and sisters have gone, and they're very sad. Yeah, they feel like we've turned, as the human species, we've turned on them, and it's very confusing to them. And at the same time, the minute you turn your attention towards any of them, they're right there. They're like so ready. It's like they're just so ready to be in relationship with us. Yeah.
You almost describe it like forgetting the family you're a part of in a way. And the family's like, we're right here.
Yeah.
We're not, you're my brother. I'm not gonna, you've been crazy the last while, but you're still my brother.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're the wacky, the wacky brother.
Yeah. And they have a lot of patience, but they're hurt. The beings are hurt. Yeah.
So with this level of consciousness across the spectrum, I've often felt I'm an omnivore, and I feel like we can't avoid killing, and death is a part of life. Because people who are like, well, I'm a vegan or a vegetarian, I'm like, great,
right? But
you're still in a web of
totally
of killing, and I don't mean that. I'm not trying to say pejorative, like I'm saying killing, like I'm just being literal.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine the plants, look, they're alive too.
Yeah.
And so how do we bring ourselves into right livelihood, in your opinion?
Yeah.
And eat?
Well, that's where the offerings and the ceremony come in, right? It's like, and that's what the Native American people or the indigenous people had to figure out a long time ago, is how to be in that right relationship. It's like we have to acknowledge that yes, our lives are dependent on the lives of other beings, whether they're animals or plants, but we make that sacred by acknowledging, the relationship there and making the offerings with, in plants, I grow blue corn. I use blue cornmeal for my offerings. Sometimes I grow tobacco. I use tobacco. I use my words and prayers. Like there's not a day where I don't go out and pray. And then make my offerings to the plants and talk and communicate and let them know that you're in need, and let the plants know that you see what they're offering and that you're in need, and you ask permission,
What does it look like to give an offering to the plants?
Well, I go out. So usually I'll start my day with my prayers, and then later if I need to make an offering to a plant for their medicine, I start by, just kneeling down and appreciating them and talking to them about the day and about my need. And then I make an offering. I give some cornmeal, sprinkle some cornmeal or tobacco with the plant. And then I ask permission, because it's not a purchase agreement. I don't.
It's not a terms of service that you check a box.
No.
That's really long.
Yeah, no. It's like I give my offering and I ask permission, and there's a way that I can check in with that to see if I've gotten a yes. And then when I have gotten a yes, I collect, and they're happy to give. They're happy to support.
If there's like when I've been out with Matt Graham, and let's say there's an edible plant, he says we're only supposed to potentially take any if there's more than 3.
Oh yeah.
And so here's my question. Let's say there's clumps of individual peppergrass or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you see them as one? Or are they kind of interested, like, well, I'll give myself up. This one's okay. Is it more like, no, there's some of us can go because we regenerate, in a sense.
Yeah.
It's like cutting hair or something.
Right. And and you do need to be aware of how plants regenerate. And but typically for me, my intention with the plant, like, I don't just go out and start collecting plants. Like, I'm like, okay, today, nettles, this is me at home. Nettles, I'm coming to collect today, or I'd like to sit with you today and see if I can collect your medicine. And so that, like, intention is going way out there before me, and then I get there and first I'll give an offering to a plant, and then I'll keep walking, and I'll make sure, that there's a good population. And nettles probably isn't the best example because I have I have a regular place I go to for nettles and know the condition of that place. But like if I'm on the mountain and I want to collect Mahonia, I'll put down an offering with the first plants that I see, and I'll tell them what my intentions are. And then I'll walk for an hour and make sure I see a lot of Oregon grape, and then I'll collect. But there's also a point where I'm collecting, and then it's like, nope, I'm done now.
And that's just listening.
That's just listening.
That is part of the communication.
Yeah.
Must be really challenging to go to a grocery store for you. I'm guessing you do not enjoy that.
I do not go to grocery stores.
It's like a graveyard. It's just like...
Yeah, I haven't been to a grocery store in 14 years since I've lived in Boulder. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Seriously. Yeah. We grow... I grow all my produce, and then we get a monthly delivery of the things I can't grow, but I don't go shopping. So...
This is a meditation on not pushing things away, but rather bringing them in, holding it all. Let's get centered. Let's get here. Just take a few breaths at your pace and arrive in a way that feels right to you. Deepening and slowing that breath into a more natural pace and cadence. In and out to being just here and now, just who you are now. That's right. Let it deepen naturally, just as you are, always arriving, always here. And just notice what is here with you now, both in your mind and your body, in this room. Everything you're feeling is welcome right now. That's right. Everything is welcome. Say that in your mind, that everything is welcome here. Everything is safe. We're not pushing anything away. We're opening our arms with love. The doorway of our heart is open, and we're saying, you can be here too right now. Perhaps the worries, perhaps even the to-do lists, the pain, the joy, it's all here with us. And we're not pushing anything away. With each breath, you're essentially opening your arms with ease. And in your mind, you are allowing, inviting. Gently breathing it into your heart and out through these open arms. Your arms like a great mother that says, all is welcome here. Breathe into that. Gently breathing. Nothing has to go anywhere. It's all perfect. This moment is perfect with every feeling that is here. Even the feelings of doubt about doing this wrong, or even that's okay. That can be here too. All we need to do is breathe into increased openness and lovingness. We are lovingly here, lovingly inviting, allowing. Breathing in, breathing out. Nothing here is wrong. We can hold it all with love. We can hold it all with just awareness, because we actually don't have to do anything. Lovingly is our natural state. It's who you are. It's who you are right now. We pull back the onion to our pure self. We're not adding anything on. This ability to open our arms of our heart to all that is who we are. It's who you are. Give yourself an internal nod of thanks for even opening, allowing. Just being here, and it's allowing the rest, the relaxation of this moment to be here too. The dropping of the grip. We loosen the grip to be here now. You are welcome here. All is welcome here. You can hold it all.